Alright, we are live. How's it going, people? Hello, Steven. Hello, Lieber. How are you? Steven is writing poetry. All is right with the world. This is what I like to see. Steven, hello. How are you? I'm opening my beer. If it looks funny, that's because party trick. I just bought the beer a little bit ago, and it wasn't yet cold. So if you wrap a damp paper towel around it and throw it in the freezer, ooh, it gets cold quickly. Now I need to throw this away real quick. Oh, how are we doing tonight? How are people? Hello, Lieber. Hey, Mars. Mars Alien, did you hear the most recent news about your, about the planet you were named after? Hello, Sadie. How's it going, Sadie? Today was the landing of the Mars Insight rover? Is it a rover, technically? The Insight? Insight landed on rover. Insight is gonna, take images and readings of the crust of Mars and, basically try and figure out what's at the center of Mars. So we've been trying to figure out what's on the surface, but Insight just landed on the surface of Mars today to... Yes, they won't find any of us. You're safe, Mars. Matthew says hello. Hello, Matthew. How are you? I am drinking a beer from Dew Claw Brewing Company. It's called Dirty Little Freak. And I picked it not because of the name, although the name is pretty good. I wasn't here last week. I was asleep. Hey, Christopher. Glad you can make it this week. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, Steven, I don't know if there's video yet about about Insight landing on Mars, but I missed the live stream today. They were gonna live stream the landing, so it's on Mars. It's sent back its first picture of the surface of Mars. It's a really crappy picture, but yeah. Listen to Dear Hank and John. Yeah. Mars, what time is it where you are? Am I keeping you up really late? Anyways, I'm drinking Dirty Little Freak by Dew Claw Brewing Company. It's got 5.8% alcohol by volume. It is a dominant blend of roasted malt, coconut, caramel, and chocolate essences. That's the reason I bought it. Barely restrained by a gentle hop bite that tantalizes your senses all the way through to a satisfying finish. Submit to indulgence, but be warned, there is no safe word. All right, that's something. Oh my God, it's good though. Oh man, there's definitely coconut. I'm not usually a huge fan of coconut. That's really good though. Elon Musk will be the first person to smoke weed on Mars. You heard it first here. It's 9 where Mars Alien is. Mars, you're in the same time as me then. Are you reading anything currently, Ryan? I'm reading way too much currently, as is usually the case. So I'm reading that same Einstein biography, which is really good. Been learning a ton about relativity. I've read like 3 Einstein books before, and I've always failed to understand, even in a very broad and oblique way, relativity. And now I think I finally get it, like the very oblique version, and that makes me really happy. Space is awesome, also. I freaking love space. We've talked about it enough already. I'm reading that. I'm rereading some Harry Potter, and I'm actually going to put some videos out on the channel about Harry Potter here soon. Speaking of videos, real quick, I should say this. As soon as the live stream is done tonight, I'm going to put a video live that I filmed today. So you guys are hearing about it first. I'm not putting it live yet. As soon as the live stream is over, I will put the video out. It's real quick. It's funny, at least in my opinion. So yeah. That's a reward for hanging out with us tonight. What else am I reading? I'm reading Breakfast of Champions with you all. I'm reading Sapiens, that nonfiction book by Yuval Noah Harari, which I probably just mispronounced. Let's see, what else am I reading? I'm looking over here because I'm reading a couple other things very slowly. Like I haven't read any more of them in the last week. And that's like the Pacific Crest Trail guidebook, etc. Yeah. Those are the big things. So, what are you reading right now, Lieber? Sadie says that description was golden. Yeah, that was. They know what they're doing. If only beer companies would or breweries would hire writers like myself to write to their descriptions, because that would be a great form of income. Probably not much income. Philip says, when do we get to hear your thoughts on the Pale King? Actually, that's a great question. I mentioned it in this video that I'm about to put out. I'm currently working on the review, I promise. It will probably be the next video I put out after this one. So it's just hard to, like, I want to do reviews very, very well. Other videos, I can kind of spend an afternoon on them and they're good. Reviews, I really want to spend some time on. Like, I want to get those things perfect. So I'm spending my time on this Pale King review, and I apologize that means you have to wait for it. In the attention economy that is 2018, where things come out so incredibly quick, content is like exploding at us. I feel like an alien when I make one video a week, if that. It's been like 3 weeks since I made a video. But I don't know, there's something, I believe I can make higher quality videos when I take my time on stuff. Hopefully I can still crank out a lot of stuff, but I want to make high quality stuff more than quantity. So I'm reading Origins of Consciousness. Heck yeah. I hope that answered your question, Philip, by the way. Are you planning on reading, Mars says, are you planning on reading Killing Commentatore, Murakami's new book? My girlfriend got it for me for Christmas, so I'll be reading it soon. Haha. I hope so. It's been too long since I've read Murakami. That also gives me a really good idea about the gift I can buy for somebody, so thanks for that. Is anybody buying any books for people for Christmas? So that sounded like a really terrible transition. I have a lot of family members, myself included, whose birthday is in like late November, early December. And so I'm in like a book buying spree to give to people. I'm not going to mention the book in case this somehow gets to them. But I bought 2 books that just arrived today, or yesterday actually, for a friend. Yeah, I'm excited to buy books over Christmas. So it's a good time, good time. As a 10-year-old, I watched a documentary on relativity and decided it was a super simple subject. I think there's something to that, the way like 10-year-olds, not 10-year-olds specifically, but like a childish fascination with, heck, Einstein said that too. Like in part of this biography, he talks about like, you don't really get any closer to understanding relativity the older you get. You maybe get closer to like, being able to be the person who introduces it to the public, but you don't get any closer to understanding it. So that's funny. No shame, it is so dense. Yeah, it's true. Take your time, Ryan. Quality over quantity. Yeah, thank God, right? I've never made a lot of other than this October. I've never made a lot of stuff for this channel. Also on a book buying spree, Sadie says, but only for myself. What are you buying? She says it's a sickness. It's the best kind of sickness. Ebooks or books? I'm buying books. I don't know if that's what you meant. I prefer books, as you can tell. Thanks for hanging out last week, people who hung out for the organization of my books. I've been taking pictures of them all week and snapping them. Not actually snapping. I don't use Snapchat anymore, but I've been sending them to people. Oh, let's see here. So while we kind of wrap, get things started today, I'm going to read some Wild Hundreds by Nate Marshall, some poetry. So quick story about this collection. Collection of poems. Most recently, it was probably 2 years ago now, Sherman Alexie said it was in his top 5 book of poems in the last decade, I think. He freaking loved this book, and I did too. I'd heard about it before that because Nate Marshall actually teaches at my alma mater. He taught there the year after I graduated, but I was there the year he was applying to teach there. So he taught there then, he took a year or 2 off, then he's back teaching there again. Nate Marshall from Chicago. This book, as I will talk about in a second, is about a neighborhood of Chicago. I really love this book. It was published in probably 2014, 2015. One of the best books of poems I've read, 2015, in the last 3 years. Very good. I'll just read some to you. But real quick before I do, there's a poem in here that explains it, and I'm not going to read that poem, so I'll just kind of talk about it. The Wild Hundreds is a specific neighborhood in Chicago. Like, I think it's if you read the whole book, you understand this, but I think it's the 100th to 110th Street or something. It's a neighborhood, the Wild Hundreds, and that's where Nate Marshall is from and what he's writing about. So I'm going to read some poems from this. Sadie bought The Art of Cruelty by Maggie Nelson, Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste. How do you say that last name? I don't know. And 2 books by Marilyn Robinson. Okay, good. I was just looking because I think I have a Marilyn Robinson book on here somewhere, but I'm not going to be able to find it at the moment, so I love it. All right, I'm going to read some poems. Speaking of the hundreds, the wild hundreds, I'm going to read you this poem called God Made the Hundreds, Man Made It Wild. And it looks like this, in case you were wondering. Just basically a prose paragraph without any, punctuation, that's the word. God made the hundreds, man made it wild. They mama tell them it wild over there. She say, over there, buses quit running like utilities, or dead boys. In them hundreds, they schools lock doors after the tardy bell, like prison. Standards is low, like the waistline of uniform pants. Dropouts is high like them girls' shorts come the month of May. For them police officers is hall monitors. Them businesses over there fail like the schools. Most all fail except liquor stores. Them never close over there. Them streets burning. Them blocks hot. Them people fired. It wild. Them police over there is overworked and not working, and they don't get enough of them police. Them police, they do got too busy sitting in Walgreens parking lot, hiding from the fire. That's God Made the Hundreds, Man Made It Wild. God, I love this book. This one's called First Love Song to the Black Girl at Smart Camp. You are all the white girls cute in just you. Your color, one lovely freckle, unending, unerring, the right brown. Even before I saw you, every kid on campus sung your song to me. She is your type, your kind of girl. You like it like how she is. All right. Kevin Wise says, what's up, Ryan? Hey, Kevin Wise, how are you? How are you? I am reading, how are you? Have I asked you that yet? How are you? I'm reading Wild Hundreds by Nate Marshall, just a couple poems to get us started. And Lieber is putting some quotes in the comments. I'm going to read those here in a second. Let me finish. There's one more poem I want to read. This is called Repetition and Repetition and. We are love, we are one, baby, we are wild. And we ain't crazy to keep forgetting. We realize that it's amnesia until and shame. Wild like amnesia, wild until we are free. Baby, we are hundreds. Until we decide we are not, we are limited by the hood. To the edge of the city limits, we are close until they close. In the schools until they close. In the pubs until they close. On the airwaves, we are live. A breakbeat, a percussive imperative. We are a pattern, amnesia, and shame again. A national shame under our single body. A pool of grief puddling, a stare into the barrel, a push out into open air. Ours is a long love song. That's the last poem in the book. Ours is a long love song. God, I love that. That was Wild Hundreds by Nate Marshall. You should check it out. It's very good. Lieber has put a quote in there. That is a very, I don't know who it's by. It's about space, kind of, and perspective. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. I finally made it while the stream is still live. Hooray, normally I get off work and it's done. Hello, Sigmund. Where are you, Sigmund? What time is it there? I am very happy that you could make it to the live stream today. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm having fun already. Mondays suck. I hate Mondays a lot. And this, at the end of the day for me, I'm always like in the late afternoon, early evening, I'm like, oh man, I got a headache. My stomach feels weird. I just texted my girlfriend right before this and was like, I got a headache. And then I get on and and I have a lot of fun. So, speaking of my girlfriend, she's in the comments. Cheers to getting off early. She says, listening while I drive home. Be safe, Megan. I love you. That was Carl Sagan. I like the quote, Lieber. Sadie says, thanks for the poems, Ryan. No, thank Nate Marshall. He's the one who wrote them in a very good way. Nice poem. Poetry is just such a kicker. I freaking love poetry for what it does to language. Like, it condenses it. It makes me pay attention to everything. There's a part in there, percussive imperative percussive. That is a whole mouthful of sounds, and I love it a lot. Let's see here. I'm in New York City, so same time as you, I believe. Yep. Just busy until like 9. Nice. People are saying hello to Megan. Megan cannot probably read the comments right now, and so I will tell her. People are saying hello to you, Megan. These live streams are always a highlight of my Monday as well. Thank you. Happy to help. Hero's Journey is a good book. Oh, for those of you who missed it, I'm drinking a beer called Dirty Little Freak. The good news is it's only like 6% alcohol by volume, so we're doing okay. We're doing okay. What else are people reading right now? I talked a little bit about what I'm reading, but what are you guys reading? Lieber says, do you like to read academic papers? It has been a minute since I've read an academic paper. I'm trying to think the last time. It's been a little bit. I read some back when I was in grad school, but I also tried to write some, and that's just not a lot of fun. I think it matters so much what the subject is, and even then it matters so much who the writer is. Like, I've read some not fun academic stuff that was maybe very good, but it just was not for me. It was not for me. Mars is reading No Laughing Matter and Just One Catch. Keep burping. Megan is a pirate, which is a different Megan than my Megan. Megan is a pirate says, just finished my year of rest and relaxation about 30 minutes ago. There you go. Perfect timing for the stream. Sadie's been in a horrible reading slump lately. Sorry, it's so much easier to read on the computer, so if I'm not looking right here and I'm looking down here, that's why. Incredible. Sadie is also reading My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson. Nice. Sporadic. I don't know if I've said hello yet. Hi, how are you? Steven says, I'm reading a book called Wild Ride. If you're a degenerate who likes the backside of a racetrack, give it a ride. Steven is my favorite degenerate. Are you a fan of Dostoevsky? I've not read much or any Dostoevsky, which is the problem. It's always the problem. We love Dostoevsky here. It's true. That was in the beginning who asked that question, by the way. Hello in the beginning. We love him. I just haven't read him yet. And that makes me a terrible person. I'm writing a paper on exoplanets. What in the world are you writing about exoplanets? I want to hear. Tell me, I know you don't have a lot of characters to use, but what are you writing about exoplanets? Tolstoy. I've read very little Tolstoy. We actually covered this on a past live stream, and I totally misunderstood I mentioned a book that was not written by Tolstoy. I've read Death of Ivan Ilyich, which I hope is Tolstoy. Pluto gang for life, Steven says. So actually, spoiler, what we're going to do here in just a couple minutes is I'm going to read you some more Breakfast of Champions, Kurt Vonnegut. I've been playing a little bit of a video game this week, and in the video game, I named my group of people Pluto Gang. So I've been dealing with the Pluto Gang life. Check out this bookmark that my girlfriend made me, by the way. It says, never trust anyone who has not brought a book with them. Lemony Snicket. Yeah, I'm excited to read some Vonnegut here in a second. I'm going to spend a little bit more time with the comments first, and then we'll do it. In short, how habitable they are and which ones can have potential for life. Lieber, what do you do for work? Like, are you in school? That sounds awesome. Yeah, tell us which ones are habitable. What's the answer? I want to know. I want to go. I actually don't want to go. I want humans to go to other planets, but I don't want to be the person to go. Ryan, did you know there's a film adaptation of Breakfast of Champions? It has Bruce Vaughn in it. Bruce Willis. Wow, Bruce Vaughn. Bruce Willis. Who does he play? It's just for fun. Lieber, you're insane. What do you do for work? Proxima Centauri B is the one to go to. Okay. Man, I read a pretty good nonfiction book the other. Just about knocked something over. Probably 2 years ago, called Beyond Earth, which is basically just a summarization of the major problems we will face when we try to colonize other planets, if we get there, which I'm not sure that we will. Yay, living in 2018. History's so much fun. Our path to a new home in the planets is what it talks about. Basically, it talks about a lot of the, like, you're going to have to face radiation while traveling. You're going to have to, I don't know. There's a couple major, and it walks through some of the, like, different experiments and different thought processes NASA and other companies are going through. So, yeah, it's super interesting. Like, you'd think, at least to my mind, before I started reading a lot about space a couple years ago, you think about certain issues with us trying to get to, like, another planet. One of them being the, like, massive trade-off of everything that you launch into space requires more fuel to launch it into space. Every bit of fuel that you add requires more fuel to launch the fuel. So one of the ways you can do that in order to escape Earth's gravity, one of the ways you can kind of escape that paradox is launching stuff from our orbit. So, like, you just have to get stuff out to our orbit, and then from there they launch, and you can use a lot less fuel that way. That makes a lot of sense to me, right? Like, that's just kind of a math equation. Some of the parts that are a lot more difficult is, like, the acceleration versus deceleration part. Like, when you start accelerating to get to speeds that allow you to travel these massive distances, you have to be accelerating for quite a while. But then once you do, you have to start decelerating too. So it's like, it's not like driving a car where you accelerate for 5 seconds, you drive, and then you decelerate. Like, if it's going to be more cost effective, you have to basically, it's almost like you have to, if I'm remembering this correctly, you have to accelerate all the way until you are basically decelerating, which again presents a fuel problem. So, and then there's the whole radiation issue where, like, currently if you were to try and take, like, a 2-year trip to Mars, sorry that I'm just rambling about this, but I really love space. If you were to take, like, a 2-year trip to Mars, the thing that would kill you would be the radiation. And I might not be using the right word there, radiation. Basically, and they've tried to come up with a couple different ways you could solve this. One of them is this big, like, fan/umbrella thing they're trying to build in front of spaceships, that would block the sun's rays, if I'm remembering this correctly, and kind of deflect them around the spaceship. Because that's one of those things where, like, no matter what kind of material you're in, like, rays are still going to hit you, and you need to, so you have to build this, like, very large surface area fan that will allow them to go all the way around you. Wow, I just ranted so hardcore on that. Bruce Willis plays Hoover, Mars says. Nice. People thought that Titan was habitable, but there's a new study which suggests it is not. It's a bummer. Trappin' Trev's wife is getting into minimalism, and she's strongly encouraging him to get rid of beloved books. You need to rent a storage space and lie to her. I'm totally kidding. Don't lie to your partner. But you need to either fight for those books if they really matter to you, or you need to compromise and be happy with your compromise. You don't need marriage advice from me. What are we doing here? You've got it. I believe in you. I believe in you both. I don't think the film got the greatest reviews. Yeah, I saw that. I can see that with Kurt Vonnegut. Trappin' Trev asks if I'm writing a novel. I kind of am. I don't know. There's a novel that I have partially worked on. That's not the thing I'm working on currently, though. So that's the big kind of, is that I have one that I'm a lot of pages into, but it's not the thing I'm writing at this moment. And therefore, am I writing it? I don't know. How's that for a terrible answer? I've not read Sirens of Titan. I need to. Read the Martian Chronicles already? Yeah, I like you've been saying that for a while now. I feel bad. I should. I will. It's Ray Bradbury, right? Yep. Such a funny book. This is, we're talking about sirens. Megan's in the comments because she has heard me ranting about... Yes, Stephen, exactly. Stephen, exactly. So Megan has heard me ranting a lot after reading this Einstein, reading this Einstein biography, a lot about relativity, and also like figuring out that space is expanding, the universe is expanding, but also there is no edge to it. And Stephen just mentioned, did you know the universe is shaped exactly like the Earth? If you go straight long enough, you'll end up where you are. Basically, Einstein uses this thought experiment. So bear with me for a second. We're going to try this. This is a thought experiment that's going to go so wrong because I only know 80% of what I'm talking about. So as Einstein is trying to prove, like trying to get to the point that we can move along the space-time continuum in the fourth dimension the same way, that a fourth dimension exists even though we may not move along it, like direct our course along it. The same way, he uses this idea that if you had a person who could only move, or like an entity that could only move in 2 dimensions, it could either move forward or back, forward and back or sideways, and then you put them on a sphere, they could move in a straight line, or they can move in all these different directions and get back to exactly where they were. And so in their experience, in their kind of in the moment presence, they would be living on a 2-dimensional plane. The problem is the reality, quote unquote, is this sphere, this 3rd-dimensional thing. He suggests that we, living in our 3 dimensions, are the same way. We cannot kind of experience in the present moment the 4th dimension, but that does not mean that it is there. Does not mean that it is not there. There we go. I said that right. How's that for a really terrible thought experiment? Einstein is rolling over in his grave right now. So you're 80% Einstein? Man, the other thing is that like quantum mechanics came along and screwed all of this up too. And like, I'm just starting to wrap my head around what we figured out as humans. And I don't actually have my head wrapped around it, but I'm just kind of starting to understand a layman's version of what we as humans figured out in like 1920. And we're 100 years past that. So if that doesn't make you feel small and inconsequential, I don't know what will. Steven says he grabbed that from a Modest Mouse song. I love that. Modest Mouse is awesome. I did not know that was from a Modest Mouse song. There's an interesting study called Titan Under a Red Giant Sun, a New Kind of Habitable. Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson recently. So the thing I've heard about that book, I don't know this. I've heard that Neil deGrasse Tyson's writing is good, but that it sometimes, like, of course, that's what a book like that is going to do, but it sometimes oversimplifies things a little bit too much. I don't know. Because he's less of a, like, practicing astrophysicist, question mark, and more of a, like, popularized astrophysicist. I don't know. I still like the guy. I like all the interviews I've ever heard or read of him. Kant came along and destroyed all of philosophy. Yeah. That was Einstein in like 1905, 1915, that time period. And then he got old and all the young people came along and destroyed his stuff with quantum mechanics. Yeah, and I don't mean to like crap on Neil deGrasse Tyson for trying to oversimplify. Like, I think all writing is this way, right? Like there's you have to choose how many people you're writing to and to what level you're writing. And I don't mean this in any kind of like controversial or talking down to people way, but like there are books published every year that are meant for an audience of 10 people or an audience of 100. Like, let's just keep going on that order of magnitude thing. Lots of books of poetry are published for about 1,000 people's eyes. And then there are books that are published for 100,000 people. And then there are books like The Martian, which I don't know how many copies that sold, but like Probably millions, you know? And you've got to make choices about where you're going to simplify and not. So, yeah, I don't want to crap on Neil deGrasse Tyson for trying to bring astrophysics to the popular, like, to, you know, into popularity. If that makes sense. Thoughts on Hawking's, Stephen Hawking's passing away a little while back. What is the name of that movie? Crap. Stephen Hawking's movie. Someone answer this for me. That's my most of my thought. Is I watched Theory of Everything. Is that what it's called? Theory of Everything a couple years ago. It was really good. There we go. Theory of Everything. Thank you, Justin. Also, hello. If I haven't said hello yet. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's most of my thoughts. I don't know a ton about Stephen Hawking's, but like, Hawkins? But that movie was really good. Flatland deals with beings that can only move in two-dimensional plane, and it's hilarious. It's a satire. Who wrote Flatland? Because that also sounds familiar, but I don't recognize it off the bat. All right, Edwin Abbott, good stuff. Let's maybe do some Breakfast of Champions. How's that sound? I just realized we're a half hour in, and I should probably do this. If I haven't mentioned this enough, or what, you know, to everyone, there are new people here on the stream. One thing we're doing is, as soon as this live stream is over, I just finished a video and just uploaded it to YouTube right before this live stream started. So as soon as the live stream is over, I will make that video public. So if we get done with all of this and you're still wanting more for the love of Ryan, there's going to be a new video out here as soon as we're done here. Lieber says, let's do the whole book. Okay. I'm going to need another beer. Justin says you need to read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I agree. And I also hear that every single live stream. Please don't stop telling me, though, because the more times you tell me, the more likely I am to do it. I'm a really terrible person for not doing it. Okay, so Breakfast of Champions. Where we're at so far, we're about to start Chapter 9. The last thing that happened was Pluto Gang. So Kilgore Trout, the writer of these books that no one reads, is on his way to this festival in New York, or in Midland City. And as he's on the way, he like spends a couple nights in New York, or at least a night in New York City. And he goes to a theater and he like tries to stay all night in the dirty movie theater, and then he gets kicked out. And as he gets kicked out, he and the manager are walking along the street, and a white van pulls up and beats the crap out of him and like ruins his clothes and steals all his money and his wallet. And he makes a joke about, for all I know, the police ask him who did it. For all I know, they may not have even been Earthlings. That car may have been occupied by an intelligent gas from Pluto. And in the way of a Vonnegut novel, things spiral out of control, and the newspaper says, Pluto bandits kidnap pair. And people start talking about it's this Pluto gang. And then a couple of young boys in one of New York City's mini ghettos start a gang that is called Pluto Gang, and also that is the name of our live stream. People who hang out here. Pluto Gang for life. Let's stay up late. Let's finish it. Okay, so we're starting with Chapter 9. There's also Dwayne Hoover is a car salesman who has lost his mind. He's got bad chemicals in his brain. And he was on top of a Holiday Inn. Yep, we'll hear about that right now. While Kilgore Trout was inadvertently poisoning the collective mind of New York City, Dwayne Hoover, the demented Pontiac dealer, was coming down from the roof of his own Holiday Inn in the Middle West. Dwayne went into the carpeted lobby of the place not long before sunrise to ask for a room. As queer as the hour was, there was a man ahead of him, and a black one at that. This was Cyprian Ukwinde, the Indaro, the physician from Nigeria, who was staying at the inn until he could find a suitable apartment. Dwayne awaited his turn humbly. He had forgotten that he was a co-owner of the inn. As for staying at a place where black men stayed, Dwayne was philosophical. He experienced a sort of bittersweet happiness as he told himself, times change, times change. The night clerk was new. He did not know Dwayne. He had Dwayne fill out a registration in full. Dwayne, for his part, apologized for not knowing what the number of his license plate was. He felt guilty about that, even though he knew he had done nothing he should feel guilty about. That's me. When I know things when I don't know things I shouldn't really know, I still feel guilty about them. He was elated when the clerk let him have a room key. He had passed the test, and he adored his room. It was so new and cool and clean. It was so neutral. It was the brother of thousands upon thousands of rooms in Holiday Inns all over the world. Dwayne Hoover might be confused as to what his life was all about, or what he should do with it next, but this much he had done correctly. He had delivered himself to an irreproachable container for a human being. A hotel room is an irreproachable container for a human being. I love Kurt Vonnegut so much. It awaited anybody. It awaited Dwayne. Around the toilet seat was a band of paper like this, which he would have to remove before he used the toilet. Sanitary, it says. This loop of paper guaranteed Dwayne that he need have no fear that corkscrew-shaped little animals would crawl up his asshole and eat up his wiring. That was one less worry for Dwayne. There was a sign hanging on the inside doorknob, which Dwayne now hung on the outside doorknob. It looked like this. Please do not disturb. Dwayne pulled open his floor-to-ceiling draperies for a moment. He saw the sign which announced the presence of the inn to weary travelers on the interstate. Here is what it looks like. Holiday Inn, the world's innkeeper. He closed his draperies. He adjusted the heating and ventilating system. He slept like a lamb. A lamb was a young animal which was legendary for sleeping well on the planet Earth. It looked like this. And that's the end of that chapter. Chapter 10. Kilgore Trout was released by the police department of the city of New York like a weightless thing at 2 hours before dawn on the day after Veterans Day. He crossed the island of Manhattan from east to west in the company of Kleenex tissues and newspapers and soot. He got a ride in a truck. It was hauling 78,000 pounds of Spanish olives. It picked him up at the mouth of the Lincoln Tunnel, which was named in honor of a man who had had the courage and imagination to make human slavery against the law in the United States of America. This was a recent innovation. The slaves were simply turned loose without any property. They were easily recognizable. They were black. They were suddenly free to go exploring. The driver, who was white, told Trout that he would have to lie on the floor of the cab until they reached open country, since it was against the law for him to pick up hitchhikers. It was still dark when he told Trout he could sit up. They were crossing the poisoned marshes and meadows of New Jersey. The truck was a General Motors Astro 95 diesel tractor hooked up to a trailer 40 feet long. It was so enormous that it made Trout feel that his head was about the size of a piece of BB shot. The driver said he used to be a hunter and a fisherman, long ago. It broke his heart when he imagined what the marshes and meadows had been like only 100 years before. And when you think of the shit that most of these factories make, wash day products, cat food, pop, he had a point. The planet was being destroyed by manufacturing processes, and what was being manufactured was lousy, by and large. Then Trout made a good point, too. Well, he said, I used to be a conservationist. I used to weep and wail about people shooting bald eagles with automatic shotguns from helicopters and all that. But I gave it up. There's a river in Cleveland which is so polluted that it catches fire about once a year. That used to make me sick, but I laugh about it now. When some tanker accidentally dumps its load in the ocean and kills millions of birds and billions of fish, I say, more power to Standard Oil, or whoever it was that dumped it. Trout raised his arms in celebration. Up your ass with mobile gas, he said. The driver was upset by this. You're kidding, he said. I realized, said Trout, that God wasn't any conservationist, so for anybody else to be one was sacrilegious and a waste of time. You ever see one of his volcanoes or tornadoes or tidal waves? Anybody ever tell you about the ice ages he arranges for every 500,000 years? How about Dutch elm disease? There's a nice conservation measure for you. That's God, not man. Just about the time we got our rivers cleaned up, he'd probably have the whole galaxy go up like a celluloid collar. That's what the Star of Bethlehem was, you know? What was the Star of Bethlehem? Said the driver. A whole galaxy going up like a celluloid collar, said Trout. The driver was impressed. Come to think about it, he said. I don't think there's anything about conservation anywhere in the Bible. Unless you want to count the story about the flood, said Trout. They rode in silence for a while, and then the driver made another good point. I feel like that's life these days. Well, he made a good point. It's all about making good points. He said he knew that his truck was turning the atmosphere into poison gas, and that the planet was being turned into pavement, so his truck could go anywhere. So I'm committing suicide, he said. Don't worry about it, said Trout. My brother is even worse, the driver went on. He works in a factory that makes chemicals for killing plants and trees in Vietnam. Vietnam was a country where America was trying to make people stop being communist by dropping things on them from airplanes. The chemicals he mentioned were intended to kill all the foliage, so it would be harder for communists to hide from airplanes. Don't worry about it, said Trout. In the long run, he's committing suicide, said the driver. Seems like the only kind of job an American can get these days is committing suicide in some way. Good point, said Trout. I can't tell if you're serious or not, said the driver. I won't know myself until I find out whether life is serious or not, said Trout. It's dangerous, I know, and it can hurt a lot. That doesn't necessarily mean it's serious, too. After Trout became famous, of course, one of the biggest mysteries about him was whether he was kidding or not. He told one persistent questioner that he always crossed his fingers when he was kidding. And please note, he went on, that when I gave you that priceless piece of information, my fingers were crossed. And so on. He was a pain in the neck in a lot of ways. The truck driver got sick of him after an hour or two. Trout used the silence to make up an anti-conservation story he called Gilgongo. Gilgongo was about a planet which was unpleasant because there was too much creation going on. The story began with a big party in honor of a man who had wiped out an entire species of darling little panda bears. He had devoted his life to this. Special plates were made for the party, and the guests got to take them home as souvenirs. There was a picture of a little bear on each one, and the date of the party. Underneath the picture was the word, Gilgongo. In the language of the planet, that meant extinct. People were glad that the bears were Gilgongo, because there were too many species on the planet already, and new ones were coming into being almost every hour. There was no way anybody could prepare for the bewildering diversity of creatures and plants he was likely to encounter. The people were doing their best to cut down on the number of species so that life could be more predictable. But nature was too creative for them. All life on the planet was suffocated at last by a living blanket 100 feet thick. The blanket was composed of passenger pigeons and eagles and Bermuda erns and whooping cranes. At least it's olives, the driver said. What? Said Trout. Lots worse things we could be hauling than olives. Right, said Trout. He had forgotten that the main thing they were doing was moving 78,000 pounds of olives to Tulsa, Oklahoma. The driver talked about politics some. Trout couldn't tell one politician from another one. They were all formlessly enthusiastic chimpanzees to him. He wrote a story one time about an optimistic chimpanzee who became president of the United States. He called it Hail to the Chief. The chimpanzee wore a little blue blazer with brass buttons and with the seal of the President of the United States sewed to the breast pocket. It looked like this. Everywhere he went, bands would play Hail to the Chief. The chimpanzee loved it. He would bounce up and down. They stopped at a diner. Here is what the sign in front of the diner said. Eat. So they ate. Trout spotted an idiot who was eating too. The idiot was a white male adult, in the care of a white female nurse. The idiot couldn't talk much, and he had a lot of trouble feeding himself. The nurse put a bib around his neck. But he certainly had a wonderful appetite. Trout watched him shovel waffles and pork sausage into his mouth, watched him guzzle orange juice and milk. Trout marveled at what a big animal the idiot was. The idiot's happiness was fascinating, too, as he stoked himself with calories which would get him through yet another day. Trout said this to himself, stoking up for another day. Excuse me, said the truck driver to Trout. I've got to take a leak. A leak. Back where I come from, said Trout, that means you're going to steal a mirror. We call mirrors leaks. I've never heard that before, said the driver. He repeated the word, leaks. He pointed to a mirror on a cigarette machine. You call that a leak? Doesn't it look like a leak to you? No, said the driver. Where did you say you were from? I was born in Bermuda, said Trout. About a week later, the driver would tell his wife that mirrors were called leaks in Bermuda, and she would tell her friends. When Trout followed the driver back to the truck, he took his first good look at their form of transportation from a distance. Saw it whole. There was a message written on the side of it in bright orange letters, which were 8 feet high. This was it. Pyramid. Trout wondered what a child who was just learning to read would make of a message like that. The child would suppose that the message was terrifically important, since somebody had gone to the trouble of writing it in letters so big. And then, pretending to be a child by the roadside, he read the message on the other side of another truck. This was it. Ajax. And that's the end of chapter 10. I am going to give myself a second before potentially reading on. Yeah, I'll read another chapter, but I'm going to give myself a second first because I need to drink some water and look at some comments. Oh. How are we liking it? It's very like short and quippy today. Very short and sassy. Pluto gang for life merch. I like that idea. Honestly, we need jackets like in the book. Let's see here. TRAPPIST-1 planets. There's 7 Earth-sized temperate exoplanets orbiting an ultra-cool dwarf star. Sorry, just trying to catch up with some comments real quick. I grew up a block away from an olive processor. I love olives, but they have a horrible smell. I really hate olives. I can't do olives, man. The Chocolate Story in 1984 was heartbreaking. Man, it's been a minute since I read 1984, but that book is good. The writing in that thing is really good. Steven, I'm going to let you guys in on a secret here. Steven says the word almond incorrectly. Incorrectly is very much a you know, who says it correctly. But at least his mother does. I don't know if he does too. I think he does. They say it's a funny way, and it makes me laugh. But they're also the ones who, like his hometown, home place is the ones that farm them. So they should probably be able to call them whatever the heck they want to. The internet is amazing. Hello. How are you? I like your videos, Ryan. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. Lieber says, good book so far. Yeah, I'm digging Breakfast of Champions. The illustrations completely make it. Like, it is a kind of, I've been thinking about this for a couple weeks now. It is a kind of children's book with these illustrations. Like, the style, as we've heard, is written enough that way that I think it's kind of conscientiously, like, you know that prompt that you get? I know I'm circling around this in a little weird way, but you know that prompt you sometimes get in English classes or in writing classes where you're supposed to describe a book or describe something to a person as if they were, like, describe it as if you were talking to an alien race that had just appeared on Earth and needed to understand the full context of the situation and had no, like, prior knowledge. This whole, like, alien outsider perspective idea, like you're writing for that alien outsider perspective. I know we talked a lot about aliens today. That is this book. Like, it's that prompt with pictures. Like, so many of the explanations of stuff are explanations that you and I would get, but he'll, like, zoom out to a level which makes them ridiculous and then add a picture and then state them in such an obvious way, excuse me, that makes it like funny and clever, and it like torques your perspective a little bit. Steven says, they are almonds, damn it. When you shake them off the tree, you shake the L out of them. I've never heard that before. He does say almonds, though. Him and his mother both. And they're both lovely people, but they definitely say that word incorrectly. Modern Man in Search of a Soul. Who is that by, Lieber? The alien outsider is the creator of the universe. I think so. It might be. Like, at this point. I don't know. It might be. I don't know. I mean, yeah. It's not actually a children's novel, but it's like, it's got that vibe to it. It has that vibe to it. Its topics are very much not children's literature worthy, but it very much has the, like, the mode of narration. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really growing fond of this idea. Mode of narration. I'm gonna think more on this. But even I think the like introductions to the different chapters, like the one that we last read, was this like, while so and so is going on here, Kilgore Trout was released by. Oh no, that's the wrong thing. Nope, that's the wrong one. 2 chapters ago. Where is it? While Kilgore Trout was inadvertently poisoning the collective mind of New York City, Dwayne Hoover, the demented Pontiac dealer, was coming down from the roof of his own Holiday Inn in the Middle West. It does the like, well, this is happening. Let's move the story to another place. I would not let my children read about sexual chewing. And that is not a sentence that I thought I was going to say out loud today. So funny. I miss your short story Saturday videos. Why did you discontinue them? I'm hoping that they're not discontinued forever. I'm hoping that they'll be back. I was just thinking about those the other day, actually. Yeah. I'm hoping they'll be back. Keep your eyes peeled. Keep your eyes peeled. Hey, say something to your child. He's listening. I have no idea what that means, Megan. Do you mean Kingsley? Our good boy? Our dog? Kingsley, okay. Hello, Kingsley. How are you? Hey. God, Megan, I thought you were trying to spring something on me, and I was like, huh. Live on the stream? Huh. Hello, Kingsley. Hey, buddy. This is going downhill quickly. Okay. So that's my dog, Kingsley. He is apparently watching the live stream. Tell him I said hello, Megan. He thought he would say it aloud one day, just not today. Matthew asks, has anyone ever read The Old Philosopher? I'm going to leave you guys to answer that. I have not read it. I'm going to leave you to read to answer that while I start chapter 11. Dwayne Hoover slept until 10 at the new Holiday Inn. He was much refreshed. He had a number 5 breakfast in the popular restaurant of the inn, which was the Tally-Ho room. The drapes were drawn at night. They were wide open now. They let the sunshine in. At the next table, also alone, was Cyprian Ukwinde, the Indaro, the Nigerian. He was reading the classified ads in the Midland City Bugle Observer. He needed a cheap place to live. The Midland County General Hospital was footing his bills at the inn while he looked around, and they were getting restless about that. He needed a woman, too, or a bunch of women who would fuck him hundreds of times a week, because he was so full of lust and jism all the time. Oh my god. And he ached to be with his Indaro relatives. Back home, he had 600 relatives he knew by name. Ukwinde's face was impassive as he ordered the number 3 breakfast with whole wheat toast. Behind his mask was a young man in the terminal stages of nostalgia and lover's nuts. Don't know what that means. Kingsley loves Vonnegut. I hope so. Dwayne Hoover, 6 feet away, gazed out at the busy, sunny interstate highway. He knew where he was. There was a familiar moat between the parking lot of the inn and the interstate, a concrete trough which the engineers had built to contain Sugar Creek. Next came a familiar, resilient steel barrier which prevented cars and trucks from tumbling into Sugar Creek. Next came the 3 familiar westbound lanes, and then the familiar grassy median divider. After that came the 3 familiar eastbound lanes, and then another familiar steel barrier. After that came the familiar Will Fairchild Memorial Airport, and then the familiar farmlands beyond. It was certainly flat out there. Flat city, flat township, flat county, flat state. When Dwayne was a little boy, he had supposed that almost everybody lived in places that were treeless and flat. He imagined that oceans and mountains and forests were mainly sequestered in state and national parks. In the 3rd grade, little Dwayne scrawled an essay which argued in favor of creating a national park at a bend in Sugar Creek, the only significant surface water within 8 miles of Midland City. Dwayne said the name of that familiar surface water to himself now, silently. Sugar Creek. The funny thing, really quickly, yeah, Stephen just said this too, is that the college that Stephen and I went to, Sugar Creek runs directly by, and Stephen and I spent many days on the banks of Sugar Creek, and Megan and I have canoed Sugar Creek, and I love Sugar Creek quite a bit. G Blue Cheese, this is not my writing. Welcome to the stream, by the way. This is Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. We are in the 11th chapter. Beloved is a good book, Lieber says. I could not agree more. Beloved is insane. Very good. Okay, keep going. Sugar Creek was only 2 inches deep and 50 yards wide at the bend, where little Dwayne thought the park should be. Now they had put the Mildred Berry Memorial Center for the Arts there instead. It was beautiful. Dwayne fiddled with his lapel for a moment, felt a badge pinned there. He unpinned it, having no recollection of what it said. It was a boost for the Arts Festival, which would begin that evening. All over town, people were wearing badges that, like Dwayne's, here is what the badges said. Support the arts. Sugar Creek flooded now and then. Dwayne remembered about that. In a land so flat, flooding was a queerly pretty thing for water to do. Sugar Creek brimmed over silently, formed a vast mirror in which children might safely play. The mirror showed the citizens the shape of the valley they lived in, demonstrated that they were hill people who inhabited slopes rising 1 inch for every mile that separated them from Sugar Creek. This is my hometown. This is where I'm from. It's that flat. It's all farmland. It's treeless. This is Indiana for sure. Dwayne silently said the name of the water again, Sugar Creek. This could be my town. Like, actually, Kurt Vonnegut could be writing about it. Dwayne finished his breakfast, and he dared to suppose that he was no longer mentally diseased, that he had been cured by a simple change of residence, by a good night's sleep. His bad chemicals let him cross the lobby and then the cocktail lounge, which wasn't open yet, without experiencing anything strange. But when he stepped out of the side door of the cocktail lounge and onto the asphalt prairie, which surrounded both his inn and his Pontiac agency, he discovered that someone had turned the asphalt into a sort of trampoline. It sank beneath Dwayne's weight. It dropped Dwayne to well below street level, then slowly brought him only partway up again. He was in a shallow, rubbery dimple. Dwayne took another step in the direction of his automobile agency. He sank down again, came up again, and stood in a brand new dimple. He gawked around for witnesses. There was only one. Cyprian Uquinde stood on the rim of the dimple, not sinking in. This was all Uquinde had to say, even though Dwayne's situation was extraordinary. Nice day. Dwayne progressed from dimple to dimple. He blooped across the used car lot now. He stopped in a dimple, looked up at another young black man. This one was polishing a maroon 1970 Buick Skylark convertible with a rag. The man wasn't dressed for that sort of work. He wore a cheap blue suit and a white shirt and black necktie. Also, he wasn't merely polishing the car. He was burnishing it. The young man did some more burnishing. Then he smiled at Dwayne blindingly. Then he burnished the car again. Here was the explanation. This young black man had just been paroled from the adult correctional institution at Shepherdstown. He needed work right away, or he would starve to death. So he was showing Dwayne how hard a worker he was. He had been in orphanages and youth shelters and prisons of one sort or another in the Midland City area since he was 9 years old. He was now 26. He was free at last. Dwayne thought that the young man was a hallucination. The young man went back to burnishing the automobile. His life was not worth living. He had a feeble will to survive. He thought the planet was terrible, that he never should have been sent here. There. Some mistakes had been made. He had no friends or relatives. He was put in cages all the time. He had a name for a better world, and he often saw it in dreams. Its name was a secret. He would have been ridiculed if he had said its name aloud. It was such a childish name. The young black jailbird could see the name any time he wanted to, written in lights on the inside of his skull. This is what it looked like. Fairyland. Sorry, I was just reading the comments real quick. He had a photograph of Dwayne in his wallet. He used to have photographs of Dwayne on the walls of his cell at Shepherdstown. They were easy to get because Dwayne's smiling face with his motto underneath was a part of every ad he ran in the Bugle Observer. The picture was changed every 6 months. The motto hadn't varied in 25 years. Here was the motto: ask anybody. You can trust Dwayne. The young ex-convict smiled yet again at Dwayne. His teeth were in perfect repair. The dental program at Shepherdstown was excellent. So was the food. Good morning, sir, said the young man to Dwayne. He was dismayingly innocent. There was so much he had to learn. He didn't know anything about women, for instance. Francine Pefko was the first woman he had spoken to in 11 years. Good morning, said Dwayne. He said it softly, so his voice wouldn't carry very far, in case he was conversing with a hallucination. Sir, I have read your ads in the newspaper with great interest, and I have found pleasure in your radio advertising too, the parolee said. During the last year in prison, he had been obsessed by one idea, that he would work for Dwayne someday and live happily ever after. It would be like fairyland. Dwayne made no reply to this, so the young man went on. I am a very hard worker, sir, as you can see. I hear nothing but good things about you. I think the good Lord meant for me to work for you. Oh, said Dwayne. Our names are so close, said the young man. It's the good Lord telling us both what to do. Dwayne Hoover didn't ask what his name was, but the young man told him anyway, radiantly. My name, sir, is Wayne Hoobler. All around Midland City, Hoobler was a common N-word name. Dwayne Hoover broke Wayne Hoobler's heart. That's a hard sentence to say. Dwayne Hoobler broke Wayne Hoobler's heart by shaking his head vaguely, then walking away. Dwayne entered his showroom. The ground wasn't blooping underneath him anymore, and now he saw something else for which there could be no explanation. Excuse me. A palm tree was growing out of the showroom floor. Dwayne's bad chemicals made him forget all about Hawaiian Week. Actually, Dwayne had designed the palm tree himself. It was a sawed-off telephone pole, swaddled in burlap. It had real coconuts nailed to the top of it. Sheets of green plastic had been cut to resemble leaves. The tree so bewildered Dwayne that he almost swooned. Then he looked around and saw pineapples and ukuleles scattered everywhere. And then he saw the most unbelievable thing of all. His sales manager, Harry LeSabre, came toward him leeringly, wearing a lettuce-green leotard, straw sandals, a grass skirt, and a pink t-shirt, which looked like this. Make love, not war. Harry and his wife had spent all weekend arguing about whether or not Dwayne suspected that Harry was a transvestite. They concluded that Dwayne had no reason to suspect it. Harry never talked about women's clothes to Dwayne. He had never entered a transvestite beauty contest or done what a lot of transvestites in Midland City did, which was join a big transvestite club over in Cincinnati. He never went into the city's transvestite bar, which was Ye Old Rathskeller, in the basement of the Fairchild Hotel. Isn't the Rathskeller a big restaurant and bar in Indianapolis? Am I on drugs right now? Rathskeller. I swear that's a thing. He had never exchanged Polaroid pictures with any other transvestites, had never subscribed to a transvestite magazine. Harry and his wife concluded that Dwayne had meant nothing more than what he said, that Dwayne had better put on some wild clothes for Hawaiian Week, or Dwayne would can him. So here was the new Harry now, rosy with fear and excitement. He felt uninhibited and beautiful and lovable and suddenly free. He greeted Dwayne with the Hawaiian word which meant both hello and goodbye. Aloha, he said. And that is the end of chapter 11. And just in time, because I am losing my voice. Time to drink some water. I've never been to the Rathskeller, but I really wonder... I really wonder what it's like. Hey, is the stream weird for you guys? Like, is it really blurry? Because it looks a little blurry on my screen. But I don't know what exactly is going on. Steven says they have great beer and live music on a rare, ungray day in the spring Middle West. Ugh. Man, Breakfast of Champions is good. We're 100 pages in. Probably 2/5 of the way there. Not quite halfway there. Megan says you look beautiful. How is our boy Kingsley doing, Megan? Not blurry on my screen. Lieber, you missed mostly just the end to the chapter 11 in Breakfast of Champions. Peasant internet connection. I like that. Yeah, so that was Breakfast of Champions. I've said this once before on the stream already, but as soon as this live stream is done, I'm going to put a video out on the YouTube channel. It's already uploaded. I'm just going to make it live the minute that this stream is done. So if you want, you can go check that out after we're done. Drake Roth asks, what is your opinion on Vonnegut's use of drawings in the book? I tried reading the book and I found them interesting. Not good nor bad. I'll say this, I don't think I would like the book so much as like an audiobook, for instance, or as a book without those drawings. I think, I was just saying that it makes me read the book like it's a children's book. And that might be partially because I'm reading it aloud and having to actually turn the page to show you the pictures. But I think there's this like pseudo-simplistic tone to it and pseudo-explanatory tone. Like a lot of children's books have this mode of narration where they're like introducing you to the world in a way that sometimes adult books just assume we know the world already. This is like introducing you to the world. And one of the ways it has to introduce you is to show you a drawing. I mean, they're not amazing drawings, but I think they're very Vonnegut and like... Yeah, the book wouldn't be the same. I don't know that it would be better or worse without the drawings, but you're right, it wouldn't be the same. So that's my opinion so far. Have I rearranged my bookshelf at all since last Monday? So I'll be honest. You see these books right here? I'm out of space on my bookshelf. I put all the yet to be read books on my bookshelf, and there's like these 4 plus a couple down here. There's like 10 books that don't fit on my bookshelf. I need a whole new bookshelf. I'm now having to very seriously think about what I'm going to do in the future. These are 2 separate IKEA bookshelves side by side. I now have to think about what I'm going to do. Ugh. Can you do the next live stream from the Rathskeller next week? That would be good. Watch me get drunk on stream. Do you find that you use the same muscle to read really long books as you do to run really long distances? Are there any similarities between these for you? That's a really great question. And thanks for asking it too, because I like getting to think about these things. Partially, yes. So the thing about running really long, this is going to sound really stupid. I ran a 5K the other day, which is really short. You know, it's relatively short. And it's very intense. It's very fast, like I raced a 5K. That is a lot different from most of what I do, which is easy, really slow, or really long, slow running. And in really long, slow running, you get a little bit bored. You kind of just have to sit in this little 8-inch space between 6-inch space between your ears a lot, and you stay here and you feel your body move, but you're mostly here. And I'll take like audiobooks. I'll listen to audiobooks sometimes, but you're just in your head for a very long time, and you're in whatever you're creating in your head for a very long time. In that way, it's very similar to reading not even reading like a long book, but just reading for a long period of time. Just like sitting there for 2 hours and reading without taking breaks, without checking your phone, without checking YouTube, Twitter. There's a big reason I'm not on Twitter, and it's partially related to those muscles. Or at least my account is live on Twitter. I think it posts my videos on Twitter, but I don't open the app. Yeah. What large book is in the top left of the top shelf? This one right here? That is my Writer's Thesaurus, Oxford American Writer's Thesaurus. It is a lovely, beautiful book, and I will get it out. If that is the book that you meant, I will actually get it out for a second. Steven says, by slow running, you mean sub 5-minute miles. I can't drive my car that fast. One, you definitely can. I've seen your car. It's a good car. I think I've seen your car. I've seen your car. And two, I'm not actually running that fast these days, so I've slowed down a lot. The funny thing is, these are the biggest shelves you can buy from IKEA. You saw them all on the live stream last week. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're 6 rows tall, and I actually use the top of them. They're the biggest freaking bookshelves you can get from IKEA. It's nuts. Yeah, that is the book you're talking about. Okay, this book is amazing, and I should honestly open it more often. It is a book that I got when I was I got it as a gift when I was going to get my MFA. It's a beautiful, heavy book. So if I open the book to, let's find a good word that would work for this. This is just like word porn. The word galore, for instance. Galore, adjective. Up in the attic were old trunks and hat boxes galore. Synonyms are aplenty, in abundance, in profusion, in great quantities, in large numbers, by the dozen, to spare, everywhere, all over the place, informal, by the truckload. I would add metric shit ton. Yeah, it's just a really, like, this is a book I don't use all that often, but when I'm writing very seriously and when I'm in the, like, final stages of working on something, a lot of times any word that sounds weird or funny, or even where the language is a little bit flat to me, I'll open this book and just kind of, I'll flip through stuff, or I'll flip to that word and go from there. Yeah, I'm a big fan. It's like, oh my God, I just love words so much. I just love words so much. What about those 6x6 shelves? The shelves in those little squares. Are those not larger? Oh, I know what you mean. I don't think that they're larger. I think I did the research on this. Megan says summary, which I think is really funny. Because we were just talking about earlier today, as you will see in this video that will go live as soon as this live stream is done, about the word summary, and to see if there were any synonyms that we could come up with. So, like, this is such a better version than Google. Like, Google is very handy. It's so immediate and quick, and I use it a lot to find synonyms for stuff. But this is just like a more full picture, and I would argue a more useful reference. Summary. Synopsis. There's a French word I don't understand. Resume apparently is a synonym for summary. Did you know that? Abstract, digest, encapsulation, abbreviated version, outline, sketch, rundown, review, summing up, overview, recapitulation, epitome, informal, recap. And then there's like 2 other versions too. Anyways, that's this book. I love it a lot. Imagine the amount of work that had to go into a book this freaking thick. I almost fell over just trying to get it up onto the actual shelf. Have I read The Triggering Town by Victor Hugo? I have not read it. You have read it, correct, Stephen? We've talked about this book before, but I have not read it. Also, can you read White Center for the Pluto Gang? Yes, I love that. There's a poem that Steven and I both love. I think that's fair to say. I love it. I think Steven loves it. That I will read at some point for the Pluto Gang. Maybe next week. I also have one or two others from people to read. A theme, yes. I'm rereading it currently. Heck yeah. Go, Steven. All right, so we are 75 minutes in, and I will be honest with you. My voice is not going to make it through the short story that I had picked out to read today. So I'm going to hang out for another 5 or 10 minutes on the live stream, and then we're going to call it quits. I was going to read a short story to wrap us up, but my throat is feeling a little funky, and I think it might be part of it snowed today in Indiana, so I think that might be part of it. I would try and read it, but it's like the shortest thing we have in that thing now is like 12 or 13 pages, and so I'm not going to do it. Instead, I'm going to drink my beer and just enjoy you guys' company for a little bit. Maybe what I'll do, instead of ending on a short story, I'm just going to read this poem that Steven and I were just talking about. Because it's a little bit longer, but it's a good poem, and it's like narrative shaped. Steven, is the name of that poem White Center, or what is it called? Do you know off the top of your head? Oh my god, that's Richard Hugo, not Victor Hugo. Did I say that? So I know White Center is the name of the actual book. Sorry, I'm just trying to look this up real quick. It is, and Richard Hugo. You're fine. I totally, Ooh, okay, so Google Books might not let me, might not let me read it. Let me try and find this real quick. Might have to change course once again and read it another time. The other problem is that I have it saved on my phone. Again, I use my phone to live stream, so I can't do that. Let me try one more time. Lieber says maybe the dog can read for us. Kingsley, that'd be awesome. I hope Kingsley likes poetry. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna let me. Don't think it's gonna let me read it. Try one last thing. Ugh. The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. Lieber, you read so much. The Shallows is also a good book. What is The Heart is a Lonely Hunter about? Because I've heard that. Sadie, if you're still here, you'll be very happy to know that I got American Psycho as an answer on Jeopardy the other day while I was with my girlfriend's family. And I seemed like a very smart person, even though I had not read the book. Alright, I am not able to access it. Anyway, I thought that would make you proud. It was just a like, what was the answer, I guess, since the question was who is Bret Easton Ellis. It was like no. The answer was, or the question was, what is American Psycho? Yeah. It was just like a quick explanation of what the book is, but it said Bret Easton Ellis was the author, and I was like, American Psycho, and I got it. So, yeah, I'm not that good at Jeopardy. I'll be honest though. There are less book questions than there should be. If there was book Jeopardy, I think I'd do a little bit better, and I still don't think I'd do amazingly. This is the problem. Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. So any big plans for anybody this week? How are people's Thanksgivings? Mine was really good. Did people see family, eat good food, have any awkward conversations with relatives? I should take a look at this right now. Today is the 26th. I might not be able to. What date is next Monday? Is next Monday the 3rd? Okay, good news. So next Monday, I will be able to live stream. The Monday after that, I might not be able to. I'm going on vacation to the Bahamas, actually. Very excited for it. But I will squeeze in a live stream at some point on the 3rd, Monday, December 3rd. I don't know that I'll be able to on the 10th. We'll see. So keep an eye out for that. I'll have some other videos on the channel anyway, so I'll mention it then. But just keep an eye out for that. Libra says Thanksgiving was good. Sadie says Thanksgiving was excellent. Family time, lots of good food. Yeah, I ate way too much food. Politics and food is a good summary of my Thanksgiving. I thankfully did not talk about any politics with anyone at all, which was nice. Matthew Boyer is apparently enjoying the absolute pain and destruction that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Just kidding. That book is really good. It's also just eventually really hard. God, that's a tough book. Sporadic Reader says, Bahamas. That's so cool. Yeah, and I don't really have to, my only job the entire time we're there is to read